Yeah. Welcome everyone to EconoUS 2017. Thank you for coming. In the spirit of creating shared prosperity for all, we know the importance of honoring place. With that in mind, I'd like to welcome Roy Bearchief from Siksika Nation to offer us a blessing.
Okay. Greetings. I'm glad to see all of you. Like Barb said, I'm from Siksika, but I've been living in Calgary for the last probably about 37 and a half years, about half of my 69 years. And I'm also a product of the residential school. Sometimes when I talk about my life, I used to say that 62 years ago, I went to residential school at the age of 7, up until I left around the age of 16. When we talk about reconciliation, we define it in different ways, but we have to look at the context where reconciliation is. To me, I see reconciliation as you could discuss it at your dinner table, in your living room, at work, in boardrooms, even on the street. Because we cannot talk about reconciliation at certain times. To me, I really believe that it's a shared responsibility. Responsibility does not only mean that First Nations are the only ones that can deal with reconciliation, but I believe as all Canadians, we need to continue talking about reconciliation. And some of the things that for me as a survivor, some of the things I believe that it's my duty to speak on behalf of the survivors that are gone. I have a lot of friends that I've lost over the years. Some of them in their early 20s, some of them in their 30s, some of them in their 40s. But I'm a voice for them. I speak for them because I consider them as my brothers, even the girls as my sisters, because we all experienced the. One of the things about that always stands out in my mind is the loneliness associated with your first days at the residential school, especially at night when the lights are out. You start crying. Start crying for your parents. And you start to hear the other young kids start to cry. But sometimes you have to put a pillow over your head so you can muffle the sound. Otherwise, if you get caught, you get punished for crying. Those are some of the things that stand out. And when I also look at child welfare, it's no different. The young kids, when they go into care, they get placed in homes. I'm sure they cry too. So for me, and I'm glad that Chief Robert Joseph is here to talk about reconciliation. I had a little conversation with him I'm glad he's doing some work surrounding reconciliation. And also had a chance to take in Sean Loney's workshop at Mount Royal the last 2 days. For me, I often say I will continue to speak out, continue to educate people, continue to allow myself to be vulnerable, talking about experiences about residential school. As long as I'm walking, as long as I'm breathing, as long as as long as my brain continues to work, I will continue to do that. Because I feel I owe my fellow survivors. I need to be that voice for them. So on that note, I would kindly request that if you can just stand up while I do the blessing. And the other thing, those that are able to, please hold hands so whatever I pray about in my language will flow through you and create that understanding. Ayo apistuk anuksistiko ikiaku khattanistu kakuks pomuksinna. Spomukina naamsinaksukutsista piitsi sinna kiamusia taaksi kiapihpiin mahkuk khatsukutsista piitsi sinna. Anuksikslo natsini tsiipina nanuhkitkuksina nanuksistikui. Nistoan kakuhkawani nisto aamuksistikui kitkuk piitak tsikakutsuksitapi. Tsikakukhatsiika kima Savunuksistutsi matapiiksi kitkutksi ustua utsikistikumu. Tsikakuhatsiika kimahpinaan istunaan ahkumaanista ika kimatuusinaan kiamusti testutsi pinnaan. Takuhatkpista patsimuihkaamuksi umhkitapiiksi. Kiaksta kuhatkpatsimuihkaamuksi taupiiksi itessukinnakiu. Takuhatkpatsimuih aamuksi tessiloka passiiksi. Aamuksi maatahkuupiiksi, kimmataapsiiksi. Takuhatkpatsimuih ka uuksaju keeksus toavaissaksissa ustamahkuhkitsuka passannu. Kiamahkuhkitsuka eksimistä tuussa mahkuhkumaan ansta passa. Kutsit soomaa juukkehpia. Kiaksta kuhatkpatsimuihkaamuksi ja neini misteiksi. Mahkut suumaanista ei kikinitaksa. Tai kuhatkpatsimuihkaa puukkäiksi. Puukkäiksi yksi niillä tuututamaapsia ustuava. Kiitäksi outtomuai. Ustuava. Mahkuhksi kimaksinaan istunaan, mahkuhkskaisi puukkäiksi, ustuava. Ikäikimmatapsia puukkäiksi. Anuhtaa kuhatkpatsimuihkannuhkaa. Kamutaani, istawatsimaa. Kiini peitä piuas. Hanjai. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Roy. for offering a blessing and for being with us here today. Oki. EconoUS is all about sharing what's working in our own communities, about learning together, and about connecting as we work collectively to build inclusive and resilient community economies across Canada. Some of us are here today reconnecting with friends of old. Some of us are here today reconnecting or connecting with friends we have yet to make. We welcome you all and hope that you have an exceptional 3 days here with us at EconoUS 2017.
Au nom de tous les partenaires qui sont les hôtes de cette conférence de EconoUS 2017, et vous, merci d'être là. Nous sommes Barb Davis et Ethel Côté, vos maîtres de cérémonie pour cette soirée, pour cette cérémonie d'ouverture, et nous vous guiderons pendant cette fin de journée. We are Barb Davis and Ethel Côté, your masters of ceremony, for our opening ceremony. We will guide you through our time together this afternoon. It is so special, Barb, to be here. Don't you feel the energy? It's fun.
It really is. What a great beginning.
Great beginning. We have come to get to understand that we all do better when we work together. This year's national conference is being hosted by SEDNet in collaboration with a number of local partners. We are grateful for all their contributions over the past year that have brought us here today. If you are here as a host, a volunteer, board members, staff, when we call out your organization name, please stand up. But I think we'll need a bit of light. Thank you so much. And give a wave, then we can at least take a few seconds to see who's there. SEDNet. Hey. Momentum. Calgary Economic Development. The Institute for Community Prosperity at Mount Royal University. You know what? Tomorrow morning at the Thriving Communities Plenary, we'll have the opportunity to meet the Calgary Regional Partnership. The team from REAP is busy as bees at Hotel Art. You probably meet many of them at the entrance. Getting ready for food for thoughts this evening. We hope you can all join us for this celebration of local food and local producers that are growing food security across the region. And you know what? During the next time we will be together, you'll have opportunity and chance to meet some of the people from those local hosts. If you are part of EconoUS, EconoUS activation team, please stand up and give a wave. Stand up. Yes. The hosts and the EconoUS team are here to make your experience a memorable one. You can come to us, ask questions, and also share your lesson learned or what you did discover during the event. Here to tell us about Thrive, one of the local hosts for EconoUS 2017, Barb.
Thanks, Ethel. Thrive is a trusted resource here in Calgary for neighborhood champions, for entrepreneurs, and for local economy leaders. We offer quality learning and key resources that help transform the economic well-being of all Calgarians. You'll have an opportunity to learn more about Thrive's work over the next 3 days. Our work would really not be possible without acknowledging both the United Way of Calgary as well as Family and Community Support Services, who are also here with us as sponsors for EconoUS. I'm honored to share the stage this afternoon with Ethel Côté. Ethel is actively involved in the social and solidarity economy in Ontario and Quebec over the past 30 years. Ethel is a social entrepreneur and a leader in the development of collective enterprises throughout Canada, with a particular focus on co-op development. This past June, Ethel was awarded the Order of Ontario for her outstanding leadership in community service. Let's just take a moment to give her a round of applause.
EconoUS 2017 was designed in the spirit of building shared prosperity for all. We have been very intentionally about building our values of inclusion, diversity, and care for people and place into the program. We'd like to extend a big thank you to the Calgary Arts Development. As the arts animator for EconoUS 2017, they've done an incredible job of integrating the arts into the conference program, such as the Kinkonauts you may have engaged with en route to Hotel Art, or as well as the Sorrel Rider drummers of Siksika that drum us into the theater earlier. Thank you. Thank you also, because you know, when we talk about values, we can use those words all over, but when we live those values, it's very critical and credential. Thank you to Universal Access for building accessibility into the program. You will see during the conference accessible location signs posted at many of our campus venues. We value inclusion and are grateful to Sean and the team at Universal Access. Where are you, Sean? Yes, okay. For really helping us building accessibility into the conference program. EconoUS 2017, oui, c'est un événement bilingue, mais ce soir, on n'a pas pu avoir la traduction simultanée dans cette salle-ci, mais on va se reprendre. EconoUS 2017 is a bilingual event, and you can see I'm much fluent. I'm in French. I'm a francophone with a big accent in English, but I have fun. So I hope you do have to. But today, all the presentation on stage will be in English, and we don't have simultaneous translation, but tomorrow, and I'm telling that to every single soul in this room, make sure when you arrive for the breakfast, and we'll explain the logistic a bit later on, pick your, not earplug, but headset, to really understand what's going on, because we will have presentation in French and English all day tomorrow. Today, we will be recording the session for sharing online, so maybe you can text and email a few people to say they could listen a bit later on. And starting tomorrow, the plenaries will be also at the Hotel Art will be live streamed. We would like to make a moment to recognize the generous support of our sponsors. And I will go, it's a kind of a song, and I will ask you to applaud at the end. ATB Financial, United Way Calgary and Area, Family and Community Support Services, Calgary Foundation, the Government of Alberta, Hotel Arts, Trico Charitable Foundation, Social Enterprise Fund, Canadian Heritage, Patrimoine Canadien, Social Enterprise Ecosystem Project, Calgary Arts Development, PSAV, First Calgary Financial, Van City, Edmonton Community Foundation, Alberta Community and Co-op Association, CEDEC, the City of Calgary, Vida Event, Ingrid Co Photography, Stand in Command, Good Company, Universal Access, Conscious Brand, Fairtrade Calgary. And also, EconoUS is green powered thanks to support of Bullfrog Powers. Please, let's acknowledge all that support from the sponsor. We would also like to thank all the guides who really help you out and let you have a great fun during the different tour it's been organized today. And we want to thank all of them who's volunteers, so yes. And the team of the Calgary Economic Development who've been guided to walk us to this major venue for tonight. Oh yes, we can applaud as well for the community. That's good.
One of the main goals of EconoUS is to help you connect with great people, innovative ideas, and new opportunities. Being here together is truly a gift and one that we want to honor. So please be sure to take advantage of opportunities to connect and engage in the many networking opportunities that we've offered over the next 3 days. There are also a lot of people that aren't here with us today, but are very interested and are a part of the work that we're doing to build inclusive and resilient community economies in Canada. So be sure to share what you're learning on social media, be that on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Please share using the hashtag EconoUS2017. So we wanted to have a little fun, because we like having fun, Ethel and I. So we wanted to get a sense of who is in the room. This is all about connecting. So why don't we find out who is here?
Can we put more light, please? Yes.
So I've got one rule, is you need to listen very carefully to my instructions. I'm going to call out a region across Canada. Please stand up and then stay standing, okay? Do we have any international guests with us here today? Please stand up. Welcome. Do we have anyone here from the territories? Please stand up. How about Atlantic Canada? Please stand up. Yes, Atlantic Canada. From Quebec, please stand up.
Oh, wow. Good.
From Ontario, please stand up. Manitoba and Saskatchewan, please stand up. British Columbia, please stand up. Last but not least, Albertans, all Albertans, please stand up. Whoop, whoop.
Wow.
Okay, please stay standing. Stay standing. Thank you. Okay, now here's where we're at. We'd like you to turn to somebody that you don't know that's standing close by. Introduce yourself. Say welcome, let people know where you're from.
No, that's good.
Okay, wrap that up, team. You give them a leash, they take them off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Okay, and please stay standing. I need a little bit more light still. Please stay standing. Okay, so here we go. We're going to play a game for sitting down. So everybody stay standing. Listen very closely. Sit down if you are not a member of a co-op. Sit down if you are not a member of a co-op.
A few people did that.
Okay, some people are confused. That's okay.
There was some awareness campaign there. People stand up, you're a member of a co-op.
Okay. Sit down if you are not a member of the Canadian Community Economic Development Network, CEDNET. Sit down if you're not a member of CEDNET. Okay, Mike, you've got some work to do. Recruiting memberships will happen tomorrow. Okay, here's a good one for us Calgarians. Sit down if you don't own a cowboy hat. Sit down if you don't own a cowboy hat.
Wow.
Okay, that got rid of a few more of you. Okay, I see maybe 20 of you still standing up. Good job. Okay, so the next one, sit down if you don't currently hold elected office.
Oh.
Okay, that got rid of a few more of you. Now there's still some people standing, okay? Sit down if you weren't a teacher at an outreach school and men elected as a member of a provincial legislative assembly. Wow. I think that's just one person left. Is that you, Minister Billis? Wow. Please come up on stage and say a few words with Ethel and I. Thanks for playing along.
Can I use this mic?
You sure can. It is my honor to welcome Minister of Economic Development and Trade, the Honourable Darren Billis, to join us for a welcome address from the province of Alberta. Thank you very much for playing along and having some fun with us. I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thank you. So thank you very much, Barb, for that introduction, and to Ethel Côté. Je veux dire, je ne suis pas un francophone, mais je peux parler un peu français. And you can thank a former senator, Canadian senator named Jacques Hébert, for starting a program many years ago in 1971 called Canada World Youth, or Jeunesse Canada Monde, for those of you that... Someone's ringing. Or maybe that's my intro music, I'm not sure. So I'm very, very honored to be here today with you, and I want to start off by acknowledging that we gather here today on traditional Treaty 7 territory for the Canadian Community Economic Development Network EconoUS 2017 conference. And I'd also like to thank the Siksika drummers for drumming us in, and for Elder Roy Bearchief for his opening prayer. Something that I wanted to mention, and I do actually have to pull out my phone, the timing of this conference, I think, is very, very relevant, or at least it's very serendipitous in that my colleague, Minister Richard Feehan, who is the Minister of Indigenous Relations, just put out today that we are marking the 10th anniversary of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And we're very proud that 2 years ago, our government, the Alberta government, for the first time began looking at how to fulfill the principles of the United Nations Declaration in the work that our government is doing. And I could go on at length at some of the initiatives that we're looking at, but what I can tell you is that it is a priority for our government, which is why both Minister Feehan and our Premier Rachel Notley asked every ministry to look at policies and ways to implement the United Nations Declaration of Indigenous Peoples within all of our ministries. Again, the rights of Indigenous peoples isn't and doesn't just belong to one ministry. It spans to everywhere and to all of us. There is a responsibility. So I'm very proud that today marks the 2-year anniversary that the government of Alberta has started work to implement those rights. For those of you that are first-time visitors to Calgary and to Alberta, I want to welcome you on behalf of Premier Rachel Notley and to welcome you to our beautiful province. I do want to thank all of the partners that helped put this conference on. Obviously, the Canadian CED Network, Thrive, Momentum, REAP, Calgary Economic Development, Calgary Regional Partnership, and Mount Royal University. And it really was a coming together of many different organizations. I also want to acknowledge a special guest that has joined us from our government. MLA Annie McKittrick is the MLA for Sherwood Park, and I can tell you that she is an incredible, for those of you who don't know Annie, you will by the end of this conference, I promise you. She's also one of the most sociable and friendly people that I've ever met. But she's really been a champion for community economic development in Alberta, and some of the initiatives that our government is undertaking, really Annie was a voice at the table and has participated all the way through. And if it wasn't so dark out there, I would ask her to rise. And so we'll point you out at some point, Annie, but thank you for joining us. So this conference is focused on economic development and communities, So first, I'm going to give you a quick overview of economic development in the last 2 years here in the province of Alberta. When Premier Notley asked me to lead the new Economic Development and Trade Ministry, I knew that we had a big job ahead of us. The global price of oil had crashed, jobs were lost, and investment was drying up. In the face of this, our government knew that we still had a solid economic base. And this is due to the fact that Alberta has significant advantages to promote and build on, including vast trade and investment opportunities across many sectors. Our government is approaching economic development strategically from a number of fronts. But the most important approach or principle for our government is that we are putting people first. We're making major infrastructure investments in things like hospitals and schools to keep Albertans healthy and to help them pursue their education. We're building roads and enhancing airports to improve our ability to move goods and services in a competitive world. We have programs to diversify our petrochemicals and our energy industry. We also have programs for smaller enterprises and entrepreneurs to help them start new companies or launch new products. And of course, we have our climate leadership plan, which will enhance our environment, improve our health, and create new jobs in exciting areas such as renewables and clean technologies. From the government side, our goal is to help grow and diversify Alberta's economy by supporting businesses and communities through our Alberta Jobs Plan. Fortunately, we have some of the world's best and most innovative leaders, workers, and economic experts. We've listened to these people, and together we created the Alberta Jobs Plan, which invests in infrastructure, diversifies Alberta's economy and export markets, supports small and medium-sized businesses, improves access to capital and encourages investment, and provides Albertans with new training opportunities while protecting services that make life better for Alberta families. We're also building on our strengths in sectors like agri-food, the creative industries, tourism, technology, manufacturing, and small business. And we're confident that the Alberta Jobs Plan will continue to produce results because we listened to Albertans and we built it together. I'm happy to tell you that we are already beginning to see a turnaround. Independent economic experts from across the country are forecasting our growth this year and next year will lead the country. In fact, last week, RBC predicted we'll grow at 4.2%, which is almost double the rate that the province grew from 2005 to 2015. And while Albertans have no control over world oil prices, or Canadians for that matter, we can make strategic investments and work with industry to grow our economy. Nearly 49,000 jobs were created here over the last year, and Alberta continues to have the highest employment rate and weekly earnings in Canada. And that's reflected in strong consumer spending, which was up, and there's a number of other indicators that were up. But I just want to talk to you about some programs and initiatives that we've undertaken that, quite frankly, I'm very excited about. Some of you from other parts of Canada have enjoyed some of these programs. Alberta has been playing a little bit of catch-up, but we have some very exciting initiatives that we've undertaken. So some of you have probably heard of Bill 30, the Investing in a Diversified Economy Act. And if you haven't, I'll tell you a little bit about it, but there's a section that is included in that act on community economic development corporations. Now, this program is designed to support whether you're a co-op or you're coming together of a group of people that want to create a for-profit fund that also provides community benefits, social benefits, economic benefits. They now will have the opportunity to encourage Albertans to invest in their own backyard, in their own cooperatives, in their own communal companies, and receive a 30% tax receipt for investing within these businesses that are really in our own backyards. And I know that there's a number of you here today who participated in helping, not only consulting with us, but frankly, you've really helped us design this program. And I can tell you, as far as an update, that the program, I'm hoping very soon we will have an announcement. I will invite you all to come to the announcement, even our out of province guests. You're welcome to come back. But in the coming months, we'll have the program stood up. And as I was talking to Jeff Loomis from Momentum, who's also been a very strong advocate, that we're taking the time to make sure that we get this program right. And for those of you that are from provinces like Nova Scotia or Manitoba and others that have enjoyed this type of community economic development initiative, we have looked across the country at different examples and really tried to put together a program that will work for Alberta, but using best practices from other provinces. And so again, very soon we'll have an announcement, and Alberta will become the 5th Canadian province to have a credit like this. Another area where our government is supporting growth and opportunities is through entrepreneurs. Through the Alberta Jobs Plan, we allocated $10 million toward the 2-year Alberta Entrepreneurship Incubator Program. We know that Alberta small businesses with incubator support have an average of a 25% growth rate, while the national average, to put this into context for you, is less than 5%. And so we know that businesses thrive and do well when they have supports available to them, whether it's through mentorship, whether it's through working with experienced entrepreneurs to help new entrepreneurs. And that's part of why we decided to invest $10 million into our Alberta Entrepreneurship Incubator Program. We've also recognized, and we recognize, that much of our economic strength and entrepreneurial drive is centered in our province's smaller cities and towns. Last year, we launched the Community and Regional Economic Support Program, or CARES program. What this program is doing is helping communities with limited resources and common interests tackle economic development projects that they wouldn't be able to individually. I can tell you that we've now funded 62 successful CARES applications, and they are getting great results across the province. And this program really came from our view on working with partners, in that it is the local leaders and local community members who know what their communities need, who know what the economic opportunities are, and who have the ideas on how to diversify their local economies. I'm a very, very big fan of working with the experts, and the experts are people like you on the ground in the community, not people like me or someone sitting in a legislature somewhere. And so we designed this program for communities, regions, municipalities, community organizations to apply for funding to be able to pursue some economic diversification opportunities that they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And it wasn't a lot of money, but I can tell you that there are an incredible number of exciting new projects and opportunities that local community leaders and community members have now access to and are able to pursue. And so that is a program that is unique. I don't know if it exists in other provinces, quite frankly. We listened to the people in our backyard who said, we need this seed money, which may not be a huge dollar amount, but it's a difference between exploring and taking an idea and turning it into either a product or a business versus keeping it as an idea and leaving it on the shelf. Every community exists in a region with various characteristics, attributes that can enhance economic activity. And our regional economic development alliances are another valuable resource for Alberta communities and the investment community. And REDA's, Regional Economic Development Alliances, exist throughout the province that are really a body where a number of different municipalities and organizations come together to look at identifying, again, what supports and opportunities exist within their communities. They connect communities with the expertise that they need to succeed and help communities undertake economic development projects they wouldn't be able to on their own. These are just some of the ways that we are investing in communities and smaller companies to achieve sustainable economic growth and diversification. Another is by encouraging investment and expanding access to capital. The Investing in a Diversified Alberta Economy Act also created 2 other tax credits. The Capital Investment Tax Credit is a tax credit available for companies that are looking at building a new facility, expanding on an existing, or bringing in new technology. And that tax credit is helping companies to make investment decisions today as opposed to waiting for years and years. And it's a 10% non-refundable tax credit up to $5 million. That applies to not just Alberta companies, but quite frankly, that's open to companies internationally around the world. I can tell you the first intake window of that came and went. We had a significant number of companies that applied. And of the companies that applied, just to give you a little bit of math of how and does this work, our first intake, we've released about $29 million worth of tax credits that is leveraging $384 million worth of investments. So it's significant. The second, its cousin, is the Alberta Investor Tax Credit. And again, similar to the CEDIFs, the Community Economic Development Funds, the Investor Tax Credit gives Albertans the opportunity to invest in small and medium-sized businesses here in Alberta. And this tax credit, I can tell you, existed in the province of British Columbia since 1985. Albertans, Alberta businesses, Alberta entrepreneurs have been asking successive governments in Alberta to introduce a tax credit like this, which is a 30% tax credit that you'll get in addition to whatever stake you have, you get in an Alberta company. This is one of the ways that we are diversifying the economy, because this is open to companies in all sectors. And so it, along with the Capital Investment Tax Credit, will support about 9,000 jobs and add at least $1.2 billion to Alberta's GDP, while helping people propel diversification and job creation province-wide. As far as the AITC, this is great. Here's my update. There are 160 Alberta-based firms that have already applied, and eligible companies that are looking at raising over $70 million in equity. Investment's critical for any size business, as many of you in this room will know, and accessing capital is equally important. And that's why we took advice from our business and community leaders and unlocked over $3 billion worth of capital for small businesses through ATB, through the Alberta Enterprise Corporation, through AIMCO, and Alberta Innovates. And I just realized now that most of you probably have no clue what half of those are. Other than ATB, which is I believe a supporter and a sponsor of this event. And so you'll learn more about ATB, but they have some very, very creative tools to help especially small businesses and small entrepreneurs. And the most amazing part of ATB, well, it's probably not the most amazing, but what I love is that it is a crown corporation. It is a provincial entity that operates independent of government, but is a bank that is able to respond to the needs of the people in our province. Are you about to shoo me off the stage?
No, I'm getting close. No.
Okay. So as she slowly starts to inch up closer and closer, so I'll know when you're breathing over my shoulder that it's time to go. We also work very closely with all orders of government. We work very closely with the federal government. They have Western Economic Diversification. Again, that is an arm of the federal government that partners with us on a number of projects. And they deliver services through Business Link, which hopefully many of you have heard of, and organizations like Futurepreneur or Alberta Women Entrepreneurs, in order to expand support available to both youth and women entrepreneurs. Many of the newest Alberta companies are considering their opportunities to export their products. And we know that companies that export grow at a rate much faster than those that don't. And so we introduced another program called the Alberta Export Expansion, which will help companies, small and medium-sized Alberta companies, break into new international markets. And essentially, it's funding, and for those of you that are small business owners or work with small business owners, you know that they don't have piles of money sitting in a bank somewhere. everything that they have is reinvested back into their company. And when I talk to small businesses to say, do you do business outside of Alberta, outside of Canada? Why aren't you? Because many of them say, I would love to. The problem is I don't have dollars for me to go into a new market, whether it's the US or China or Europe. And so we made available a program that will cover up to $20,000 for small businesses for their flights, their travel expenses, their lodging. And as well, Alberta has 12 international offices around the world where we have both locals and others that work in these offices to support our businesses. So whether that's helping to identify potential companies or investors or buyers, to support our companies when they go overseas to ensure that their time or your time is maximized wherever you go. And I could stand up here and tell you story after story about companies that have accessed this funding who are now doing business in a variety of countries. And so we launched the program last October, and we've helped more than 100 companies so far meet with clients around the world. And so, as you can see, our government's approach, I am winding down now. Oh, she's got a friend up here, so there's two of you, soon there'll be a whole crowd of people. As you can see, our government's approach to economic development is on a number of fronts. But, what I'd like to emphasize is that all of these initiatives, we may have rolled them out, but they've all come from you and from our entrepreneurs and community leaders who have said to us, these are the tools that we need to be successful. And we as the government of Alberta realize that we play a role, a small role as far as supports, whether again that's through mentorship, expertise, working with organizations like the ones that are putting on this conference to help provide you with the tools you need. And so I do just want to acknowledge very quickly that there's a few of my department staff that are here with you and are staying with you over the conference for the next 3 days. Again, you won't be able to see them because it's dark out there. But we have Stacy, who is Director of Economic Development Programs, Megan, who's a manager with Program Delivery, and Lisa, who's the Regional Economic Development Specialist here in Calgary. And what I will ask them to do through the next 3 days is to try to talk with as many of you as possible, because if you are an Alberta small business or member of a co-op interested in more information, then I would encourage you to connect with them, and we'd be happy to share what supports are available. The last thing I'll say is everything that I've talked about is on a very simple website called jobsplan.alberta.ca, and I'll encourage you to take a look at that. And so again, we're always interested to hear from you, to hear ideas, to hear what are some of your challenges and barriers and what role we can play to help you overcome them. So I encourage all of you to look to us as an ally and a support, and we want to continue to see you doing well, because we know that when our small businesses do well, our province does well, and when our province does well, our country does well. So thank you very much. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Thank you so much, Minister Billis. Maybe Bilou in French, we never know. But it's interesting because, and very inspiring to hear some politicians talking about strategies, initiatives, and programs, sustainable one who will enable the sector, the community build-up and everything. I'm happy also to say, because we just got that news not a long time ago, and he can't be with us right now, but tomorrow at lunchtime, the Honorable Ken Hur, Minister of Sport and Person with Disabilities, will be with us. He's also the MP for Calgary Centre. So we are planning to really, take time and use this opportunity to meet him. I will invite someone to come in front. And I know in my own practice as a CED practitioner, I work closely with my municipality. Do anyone in the room are doing that? Working with their municipality? Yeah? Okay. So I will invite Kurt Hansen to come in front, and I will introduce him. Mr. Hansen. For me, municipalities are critical in our equation, our agenda, in any strategies to support local economy. And we do invite right now the General Manager of Community Services of Calgary, Kurt Hansen, to speak to us. Kurt oversees 7 areas of work, including Calgary neighborhood and Calgary housing. But what I really like when I look at your bio, the community services, it was written, is a people department, and the heart of his work is community. So Kurt, I'll let you speak.
Thank you very much. It's a delight to be here. I also like that it's bilingual. I'm married to a Francophone myself, and I'm going to take some of those headphones home because I can't always keep up with her, frankly. And when she's on her phone to the mother, I'm really not sure what I'm being talked about in certain ways. So any advantage in life, you should take it, I think. As mentioned, I'm Kurt Hansen, and it's a privilege to be here today. As the General Manager of Community Services, as mentioned, we do community development, we do FCSS, that's a sponsor. We have a variety of impacts in communities, from recreation to parks to affordable housing to fire to 911 to SEMA. So that's where we live our lives, is in the community. And I was delighted when I was on my way over here because I was told these people have a passion for community. Community economic development, but about community. That aligns with my values and thinking, and I'm just delighted to be here on behalf of the City of Calgary and my colleagues who aren't here because they're still in council session where they expect me to be back shortly, but I got someone else covering for me. It's a much nicer crowd here, frankly, and I didn't say that publicly. But on behalf of all of the City of Calgary, I want to welcome you to the EconoUS. What a brilliant opportunity to be with colleagues who have a similar passion, a similar interest with regard to having impact on the people they serve. I only saw 1 or 2 hands of folks that work with municipalities, but it's dark out there when I stood up, so I hope when we're done that that's an opportunity you see where I think grassroots work and partnerships to have impact is very important. And I think, Minister Billis, thanks for going over the many projects and programs the province has put together, because that enables municipalities as well to work with partners to make things happen. And I know where the work really gets done, which is in the community a lot of times. So I think that the themes of EconoUS are closely aligned with the overarching vision for Calgary, the City of Calgary, which is a great place to make a living and a great place to make a life. I think part of what this has meant for us as Calgary is to guide us towards the vision, and we have a 4-year planning process which includes objectives of a prosperous city, a city of inspiring neighborhoods, a city that moves, a healthy and green city, and of course a well-run city. I won't spend a lot of time on programs from the economic development side, but the one theme I'm going to bring up is because we've been in a recession. We've got economic development strategies going on, but we've really thought about, our citizens and putting citizens first with regard to reaching out and trying to make Calgary a place for everybody. And we know economic impacts those that are most vulnerable first. And so I've had the privilege to work with my colleagues and community and partners to really focus on a number of key notable achievements we've been working through, which includes the creation and implementation of a poverty reduction strategy. We know when it hits the skids, who's first impacted, and we believe everybody should have a chance to participate in their community. Yeah, clap, because I think that's important. An affordable housing strategy. Again, if you don't have a roof over your head, trying to make a living, trying to make a life, trying to move your kids around, trying to take care of prosperity is very difficult. So I'd encourage you, if you have an interest in either the poverty reduction strategy or the affordable housing strategy, which we completed 1.5 years ago now, those are programs we've been able to champion and move forward and put in place. Fair entry program, which gives citizens the ability to access programs that they wouldn't otherwise be able to access. The thing that was unique for us was making sure they didn't have to go and apply in recreation, in transit, over in all the different programs that they might get. We've coordinated that in a fashion that you make an application, you get a card, that gives you your ticket of entrance to whatever the services you need to be an active participant, party, and member of our community. sliding scale transfer pass. That's also one, and part of a debate we'll hear later on if I don't get back soon, with regard to how much we've given the ability for merit, income merit, access to transit passes. Again, it's only a community when everybody gets to be a party to it. So I think your work on community economic development, your interest with regard to justice, your interest with regard to how to lift the boats, not a couple of them, but all the boats from an economic point of view is absolutely incredibly important. And I think that's an objective that I think we've been trying to achieve with the city. Again, we can have all these lofty ideas and lofty policies, but they only do it, it only works when you do that in partnership with community, in partnership with other societies and other groups in order to make things happen. And for those that have been out there, you know that that's true. And so in undertaking that, I think it's really important that you have an opportunity with leaders from across Canada here. My father used to say, it's a red letter day. You may not know what that means because you may not keep diaries, but in his world, you pulled out a red pen to write down those days that were special. I hope and I encourage you to make this a red letter 3 days, where you share your ideas, where you commit to your principles, where you learn from each other, and you have an opportunity to lift the boats in this room, because lifting these boats can go back home and lift boats for others that really need it and will have a significant impact. The other thing that the city has undertaken recently is to be part of a resilience strategy, 100 Resilient Cities program, which the city has, we had to put our name in the hat, compete for that. And I think part of that was our recognition during the flood in 2013 about how you get things done once again. How do you build up resilience in community? How do you build up resilience in individuals? But mostly, how do you recognize that the best assets you have are the people in your community? I remember during the flood, someone said, we'll get some volunteers to help us out during this challenge. We'll get about 400 or 500 people if we put out a call and have them meet at McMahon Stadium here, which is the football stadium. 5,000 people showed up. 5,000 people showed up, ready to help their neighbor. And you know what? That's a huge asset in your community, is the people there and starting to share ideas, share information, and move things forward from that point. So we've become part of that Resilient Cities program because we hope we can share what we've learned. And again, you learn so much when you talk, share with others. It's incredible. So I would ask you to take the challenge to think about that for your 3 days here, to make it a red letter 3 days for yourself. Again, I know you'll bring back what you've learned with regard to diversification of the economy, community economic development, how to get things moving, and get some brilliant ideas from each other because you're your own best resource. And I hope that you enjoy your time in Calgary, you take an opportunity to experience our great city, and also share with others how your great cities have helped others and moved along the economic agenda. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful conference. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hanson. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Chief Robert Joseph and Sean Loney, and I will invite them to come on the stage when I'll introduce them. Chief Dr. Robert Joseph is a hereditary chief of the Gwawinhook First Nation who has dedicated his life to bridging the difference brought about by intolerance, lack of understanding, and racism at home and abroad. His insights into the destructive impact these forces can have on people's lives, families, and cultures were shaped by his experience with the Canadian Indian residential school system. He will be on stage with Sean Loney, a longtime member of Canadian CED Network, also an Ashoka Fellow, the first in the Canadian Prairies, and a Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2014. He has co-founded and mentored 11 social enterprises, including Built Incorporated. Sean recently published An Army of Problem Solvers, his second book following Build, Prosperity, Energizing Manitoba's Local Economy. Chief Joseph and Sean, over to you.
Thank you. I've, with my partner Fiona, grown some tobacco at home in Treaty 1. And I've prayed with this tobacco chief, Joseph, and I'd like to offer it to you.
Thank you, Sean.
In hopes that we can have a conversation about reconciliation in the context of economic reconciliation especially. And I'd just like to start by asking you what seems like a simple question, but it's really the question that Canada is asking now, and that is, what is reconciliation to you?
Thank you, Sean. That's the most important question that this country has to answer at this time. All of you probably remember that there was a Truth and Reconciliation Commission report that was completed and submitted just a few years ago. And that report characterized what had happened to Aboriginal people, Indigenous people in this country as having experienced cultural genocide. And that was quite a strong indictment. But what was more exciting was a subsequent poll following that, the submission of that report that said, in spite of the characterization, and they agreed with it, 7 out of 10 Canadians wanted to reconcile. So now here in this country, we have a really huge momentum going on right across the country among Canadians and Indigenous people around the idea that we absolutely need to reconcile. And it's a very exciting time in our history. We need to continue the momentum. And one of the pillars, of course, of sustaining reconciliation will be economic reconciliation. But before all of that happens, there needs to be a relational shift. We need to restore a relationship between all of us, Aboriginal and all other Canadians. We need to have a dialogue among us that creates that deeper understanding that allows a transformative change. And then we can begin to look at the systemic shortcomings that we currently operate under when it comes to Indigenous people. And of course, unemployment, poverty, despair are all in there. And the only way that we can mitigate these issues is to collaborate together around building wealth and sharing prosperity. And so it leads to the kind of ideas I've read in the background for EconoUS 2017. I'm really, really excited about the idea that the focus is on community, and that the focus is on creating thriving, vibrant communities that create resilience and prosperity. And if that's the focus, that's exactly, or the process, that's exactly the process we need when we approach Indigenous communities to bring them into the mainstream of development in this country. And I think it's really important to consider how we're going to do that.
So imagine it's the year 1905, and there's a man on horseback, and he's galloping along towards the lip of the Qu'Appelle Valley in Saskatchewan, and he's accompanied by RCMP escort, and he has some staff with him. His name is William Graham. William Graham is also known as Peg Leg Bill, because when he was a kid, he fell on an axe and cut off the bottom of his leg, replaced with a peg. Peg Leg Bill comes to the lip of the Qu'Appelle Valley, and he looks down, and there he sees 3,000 Indians. And around those Indians are the Hudson's Bay traders. The Hudson's Bay traders have these carts, are just groaning with the weight of merchandise. Peg Leg Bill has with him 15,000 $1 bills. It's treaty days in Fort Qu'Appelle. Each Indian gets 5 $1 bills. And you know what's going to happen? We've seen it in our communities today. The money goes to the Indigenous people, and as a coworker of mine says, it just slides off brown hands. The beneficiaries are the Hudson's Bay Company, the traders that are there. The customers are the Indians, and the power is with Peg Leg Bill, who is the Indian agent representing the Government of Canada. And to me, reconciliation is changing those relationships. Changing those relationships so that the power is with the Indigenous people and those that are marginalized in our communities. The customer is the federal government, and they are buying services from Indigenous people, including proper child welfare, which the elders tell me is keeping families together, not tearing families apart. Renewable energy and healthy food just being some examples. And this is our defining moment in Canada, the defining issue, connecting people who most need the work with the work that most needs to be done. And here we are in this room being a vehicle for that to happen. Social enterprises and nonprofits do exactly that. And so, Chief, I'd like to ask you, what does a future economy look like to you? What does an economy where we're in a country that has proper relations with each other, what does that look like in the future, now and in the future?
Well, thank you for that question. I wanted to start by mentioning that the scenario you just described has always been so since the coming of the first newcomers. Of course, we have always lived in our territories, and prior to the coming of newcomers, the resources in those territories we had access to, and we developed our own Indigenous forms and processes of economy. And all of that changed, of course, when Canada started to become a confederation, and we no longer had any more access to our own territories, and were marginalized on little reserves. But now we're here in this moment, this historical moment of reconciliation. The possibilities are endless. There are people, Canadians from coast to coast to coast, who are already engaged in reconciliation, and many others waiting to see how they can get involved in this process of reconciliation. And I think one of the ways that are one of the pillars for real sustaining reconciliation will flow from people like yourselves, people who have ideas about how industry, how economic development can change to be inclusive. And it's really important that we consider that when you're in Aboriginal country, and many of you are, that when you develop programs, economic development projects, that you don't come to that place with the same designs and formulas and attitudes that you've always come. You've got to find some way to embrace and embed in that process the additional value of Indigenous people. It can't be the same old, otherwise we get the same old result. And one of the things I really like about this conference is that you talk about community-based economic development. That ought to be what it is. For all of the time that I've been growing up, there has been no recognition of our community and the economy in it, and we've been marginalized and dismissed. So now if we come together and we agree to collaborate, and it's community-based, and it involves all of our community. And if we can then pay attention to the idea that we should infuse contemporary context of economic development with some other ancient, traditional values and principles, that it has a real chance to work. And I see that coming out of our ability to begin to change our relationships with each other so that we can look each other in the eye, have discussions, begin to understand each other. You begin to understand why it is that we've been marginalized and why it seems that we can't get on our own 2 feet. And if we have these discussions, we're going to discover how to motivate all of us to be moving forward together in an economy that's community-based and community-designed, imbued with the values with all of the people in that collective community. I think that's a really inspirational idea to be inclusive. In Canada, in general, we haven't been very inclusive, right?
I've just come home from a trip to Scotland, and there are 5,600 social enterprises in Scotland. It's 1 for every 1,000 people. And they've done that largely through, not so much through, well, as part of the ecosystem, they've done it largely through procurement and planning to do more and more procurement where governments are purchasing goods and services from social enterprises. Because, as you say, Chief Joseph, that we need to measure the value that we are bringing to the table in this room and across Canada, our partners that we have. And in fact, I was riding a double-decker bus in Edinburgh, and I began to just look to compete with my partner who was sitting next to me to try to see who could see the next social enterprise first. They have full plans to continue to ramp up the number of social enterprises that were there, and it really puts the community first. It acknowledges that inclusive growth is the way to move forward, and that we need an economy where everyone is included. And to me, it kind of described our future in Canada. And I know we have the federal government that is inching in that direction of updating their procurement practices, and certainly we'll welcome that day. In Manitoba, we have Manitoba Housing that does now $7 million a year business with social enterprises so that we can hire their tenants. And we've recently made a pitch that we ramp up the number of people on our social enterprise payrolls from 200 to 1,000 over 5 years, and that'll be largely done through social procurement. What I'd like to ask you, Chief Joseph, is could you just tell us some of the barriers you think that are preventing us from achieving this kind of economy here in Canada?
Yeah, I think that they're obvious and they're not always business-oriented barriers. I think old attitudes, old prejudices, racism are huge barriers. We recently concluded a nationwide poll among Indigenous people and ordinary Canadians. And what was really remarkable about what we found out was that they identified these barriers that I just mentioned as the most serious barriers to moving forward in any way. And I think we have no capital in many of our communities. So government and yourselves, those who wish to partner with us, need to invest and to collaborate really closely with our representatives. And I think that government, at one time, by the way, we had total access to resources throughout the territories that we claimed as traditional territories. Over all that time since then, we were herded on and marginalized in little reserves that for the most part, have no potential at all. And I think that government has to open up the doors a little, and in our collaboration, we have to be innovative and be able to find markets and resource areas we can develop together. We've not been players in any economy whatsoever.
The rules are certainly not stacked in your favor. One of the social enterprises that I've been fortunate enough to be involved with is called Aki Energy. And Aki is a Ojibwe word for earth, and we're installing geothermal on First Nations in Manitoba. And we've now installed $7 million worth of geothermal, all done by First Nation enterprises, and none of it involving the federal government, in that it's a financing, it's a business model. Manitoba Hydro provides us the money up front, and we install the geothermal, and Manitoba Hydro gets paid back out of the savings. And it was going so well that we made an announcement at the Wewesikapo Ojibwe Nation that we were going to do $8 million worth of geothermal, and $4 million of that would be on reserve labor. And we got this little email from the federal government saying, no, we're not going to permit you to do that. If you want to do geothermal on First Nations, you must apply for funding. And we have realized, and you'll see reading our book, Army of Problem Solvers, that it's our firm belief that these colonial rules have come out of Peg Leg Bill and his views of Indigenous people. Peg Leg Bill was one of the main people responsible for changing the Indian Act so that this activity we saw here, this drumming, was a jailable offense. And when Roy was telling us about him going to sleep crying at night and listening to all the other children crying, we're just coming to terms with this in Canada, about how hard our government worked to take the Indian out of the child. And what I'm starting to realize is how hard the government was working to take the Indian out of the economy. And we're still doing it today. We set up Aki Foods to do local food at the Garden Hill First Nation, and discovered that Nutrition North Canada, federal government again, gives $1 million a year in subsidies to monopoly retailers that sell mostly unhealthy food. Aki Foods raises chickens, lots of vegetables, and is a real source of hope in northern Manitoba. Nothing that they do is eligible for the incentives, because in order to be eligible, you have to fly the food in from outside. It was part of the job of the Indian agent to ensure that there were no companies negatively impacted by economic activity on the res. This is going to stop, and we are going to stop it.
Can I just add a comment? I really appreciate your comment. I feel strongly that the road to reconciliation is going to involve us, you and I, where we live, small business, big business, industry, and not necessarily government. Of course, they have a lot of work to do, government to government, with our First Nations, and they need to resolve those things. But in the final analysis, if we want to live free with dignity and respect, it's going to be because we in the communities redeveloped our relationship and developed that sense of honor and respect for each other.
That's well said. So I'd just like to ask you, Chief, as a way to wind up, if you could share with all of us here what you think our next steps can and should be. And you've got our attention now. You've experienced things that most of us in this room have not, and we cannot know what that's like. But what advice would you have for us around reconciliation?
Thank you. I just got to tell you first, I spent 11 years in a residential school. It was brutal, and the impacts have been lifelong, and I'm still working on that issue. And there is no deeper desire for me than to move from that experience. And I know that the only way that I'm going to move from that experience is when we have a relationship, Canadians all, and where we have a society that really has equality and justice as an end goal. So now that you know what you now know as a result of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. You need to do what you're doing today. Listen and listen and listen and hear what Indigenous people are saying. I'm not an economist. I've never rubbed two nickels together even. But we have people in our communities who are good at that and who want to engage with you. And I think you should reach out to those people in those communities and just simply be good neighbors, neighborly. We're all in this together, and nobody's going to go away. One of the things I know for sure is that we're not going to cure the malaise in my community, the harm and the hurt and the brokenness without you. And we're not going to move ahead in ways that we want to and remove the stigma and the hatred and the racism and the prejudice unless we're working together. And unless I acknowledge and recognize your humanity too, and your value and your worth and your purpose. And ultimately, however this country turns out, it's already a good country. If it wants to be great, it'll be great because of us in this room and in our neighborhoods where we live, coming together to design economic development projects that belong to the people. And we can't circumvent that. I know the 94 recommendations, like I said, they need to be met, and we're focusing on them. The problem with the limitation with that, it's between government official to government official. And it's not a people-to-people process. And if we continue on that path of just allowing government to be the ones to reconcile, we might lose this golden opportunity to make Canada one of the best countries in the world. We, in fact, can be a model for the rest of the world, I think, when we get this work done.
I like how you say, Chief Joseph, that our lives are intertwined, and I'm kind of hard on the Northern Store and the contribution that economic model is making to unemployment and diabetes in communities across Canada. My privilege largely comes from a grocery store that my family operates in northwestern Ontario, where I grew up, and because I didn't grow up in poverty, I had choices, and poverty takes our ability to choose away. And the largest block of customers that has shopped at my family's grocery store and continues to shop at my family's grocery store is from the local First Nation, the Rainy River First Nation. And so I've come to conclude that poverty and privilege go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And so our lives are very much intertwined. And I also think it's important for those of us with privilege to realize where it's come from. And some of us were born on third base and think we hit a triple. And it's just really good to acknowledge that. And I honor the fact that people kept singing when they were told not to. I honor that the solutions to every economic problem we have are from your people. And you will lead and we will follow. We will go together to a place that's much better than where we are now. I also just want to say to those of you here that it seems to me that the most important thing that we can all give away is our love. That is unquestionable in my mind. We give it to our families and we give it to our communities. But the next most important thing we can give away is our time. And you do that here, you do it in your home communities and in this country. And for that it is a tremendous celebration that we're all here together. So in Treaty 1 we say miigwech, thank you. And let's have a great conference and learn from each other. Thank you.
Before you run away, just give us one quick moment. We just wanted to share with you a couple of gifts. Sorry, Sean. I was trying to get my mic to work. Test, test. Thank you both for sharing, for your heartfelt words. Sean's book, An Army of Problem Solvers, I really like that title, Problem Solvers. Because when I look out at all of us here today, I think of all of us as problem solvers. And we really see the opportunity ahead, the possibilities, as Chief Robert Joseph said, the possibilities that are in front of us. In this really important, timely conversation around reconciliation and what's possible ahead. So thank you so much. I really invite all of you to reflect on the conversation that we had the privilege of listening in on today with Sean Loney and Chief Joseph, and share with one another on the walk back to Hotel Arts insights and reflections that you have from the discussion. So on that note, we just have a few housekeeping items to wind ourselves up before we head back over to Hotel Arts.
How are you, by the way? How do you feel? Oh, that's good. So we just want to make sure when you go back, and you will be part of the Food Thought for sure, and we're still having tickets available. When you go back at the hotel, you can buy some tickets. Tomorrow's plenary, Building Thriving Communities, will begin 8 o'clock sharp at Hotel Arts. A breakfast buffet will be served starting at 7:30, and we would welcome you to come in the room. Like I said, pick up your translation device, headset. Thank you so much. What else? Oh, yoga. What happened with the yoga with the weather here?
Well,
we yoga in the park.
We haven't had rain for so long, and go figure, the 3 days of rain happen to be today, tomorrow, and Friday. So due to the welcoming weather that's arrived for EconoUS.
And it's a bit cold.
It's a bit cold, yeah. Just a little bit. Yoga in the park has now moved indoors. It is yoga at Hotel Arts, and it's at 6:30 to 7:30 a.m., both Thursday and Friday. There's a sign-up sheet at the registration desk that you can put your name on if you want to be part of yoga in the mornings.
And I think there's something under some seats in the room, so what's going on with that?
Yeah.
And where does it come from?
So if you just want to take our lights are a little bit low. We might need a little bit of lights to be able to do this. If you wanted to take just a quick boo under your seat, you might find a REAP sticker.
And if you have a few chairs left next to you, you can look next to you as well. Aha, pick up the sticker. That's good.
That's great. So we have time to ask Chris to come on stage. It's only 5:15, so I'm going to ask him up, okay? Mm-hmm. So if you have one of those little REAP stickers that's a honeybee, take that back with you to Hotel Arts. When you go to register at the front desk, there is a prize, a gift from REAP for anybody that has a little REAP bee sticker on the bottom of their chair. So be sure to take a look for those.
And there's a workshop for all attendees. Can you speak about it a bit?
Yeah, I also wanted to take a moment. On Friday, we have a really exciting session in the morning called Learning to Action. This workshop is all about moving our ideas forward. So we have today and tomorrow to come together and learn, and Friday is all about action. What are we taking home to our own communities? And I wanted to just take a moment to invite Chris Corrigan up on stage to share with us a little about the Learning to Action workshop and what's anticipated or expected for all of us between now and Friday morning.
Thank you, Chris.
Hi, thank you. One of the things about reconciliation is it's not good enough just to acknowledge the territory. And so if you go to Tsutina, the reserve that's just at the south end of town here, the First Nation, there's a rock pile there. And every child who's born into the community since they signed treaties has added a rock to that pile. And since the time of the treaties, the Treaty 7 that was signed, that rock pile has just grown and grown and grown, right? And it makes a big impact in the community. That inspiration, partly, is coming into what we're doing on Friday, where every little rock that we add leaving from here adds to the pile of economic development stuff. The purpose of Friday is to actually activate this network. So to use people in this room to help make projects better on the ground. We're going to do that by having any one of you who wants to, and up to a quarter of you, we're going to get you to bring projects into the fray, to name a project or something you're working on in the community. And when you go back to Hotel Arts, you'll see there's like a clothesline with posters on them. Have you seen those? They're by the windows between the registration and the main room. Go back and start looking at those. They're starting to be added there. Each one of those cards has a number on it. That number will correspond to a table. And if you put a project up there, you're going to be offering yourself as a host for 3 other people to join you. Over the course of Friday, we'll circle through 3 rounds of design conversations where people can come and help you with that project. So it's an opportunity to apply learning, it's an opportunity to make connections, and to get all kinds of experience into the work that you're going to be doing. So I encourage you when you go back to either offer a project or to take note of the ones you want to be a part of, because it's only going to be 3 people at a time. It's like first come, first serve. Then Friday is going to be this incredible, messy, chaotic shit show of design and development and economic realities coming to pass at a local community level, applying all of the work and the learning that we're doing, okay? So I want you to come prepared for good messiness, and I want you to come and offer your project for people to come and help you so we can apply the grounding. Those are the 2 things you need to do. Put a card up on the wall or come as an advisor and a coach, okay? And everybody will be involved. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. And Barb,
Go ahead, Ethel.
the registration desk will be open when we go back to the hotel as well. And maybe some of you didn't get your badge yet, your name badge. But I don't know if you were inspired like me. When I saw it, no plastic, and efficiently everything is there. It's not only your name. You can see a color representing if it's a staff involved in the conference, if it's yourself, if it's a participant, a speaker at a conference. But more than that, there's a map where all the venues will happen. And much more, but it's designed by one of your partner.
Yep, designed by Good Company, which is a local-based business here in Calgary. So big hats off to Good Company that helped us with all the design for EconoUS.
And I think
that is your roadmap for the next 3 days, so please use that.
And what about the Alberta CED Network gatherings tonight as well?
So happening this evening, 7 o'clock at Hotel Arts in the Galleria room is the Alberta CED gathering. This is an invitation for all Albertans that are here with us today to come together to network and to envision what does CED look like in our province and where are we moving CED forward. So invitation 7 o'clock tonight in the Galleria room at Hotel Arts, but you're probably getting a little bit hungry. So right back at Hotel Arts is Food for Thought. That's happening right now. And so we'll walk together back to Hotel Arts. You'll be able to enjoy some delicious food. There's still tickets that are available if you don't have a ticket for Food for Thought. There are still tickets that are available at the door. Enjoy some great food. You can stay for the evening. And if you're an Albertan, you can move over into the Galleria room if you want to be part of the CED gathering that's happening there.
Did we cover all the logistics for tonight? And we can continue tomorrow?
Let me just take a quick boo. Oh yeah, one last thing I wanted to share is... on your way back, how are you going to get back? There's a lot of out-of-towners here, so you might not know intuitively how to get to Hotel Arts. So we have an amazing team from Momentum here today. Thank you all to the Momentum staff that are here supporting people to get back to Hotel Arts. There are some maps on the way out. If you're not familiar with the route, you can grab a map, but also look out for anybody in a blue Momentum shirt or a blue Momentum jacket on your way back. They're your guides. They'll help you get back safe and sound to Hotel Arts. And on that note, we'll see you back at Hotel Arts. Thanks so much for a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Yay. Job well done. We did it.
Tomorrow.
Yay, thanks, Sally.
Their presentation is it filmed? Is it recorded?
Yes. So good. Sean
So
is amazing. He really held that space for...
And the minister's still there, so
Yes.
we can give them.
Yes. Do you want me to run that?
Just the screen, I couldn't get it fast enough for the first speaker, so I'm going to have to leave that. There's no way.